Thank you.
9-year-old Ishla Haskins has been in and out of the hospital since she was a tiny baby. She was 9 months old when doctors told her mother and father that she had sickle cell anemia. It's a recessive trait carried by both of Ishla's parents without any symptoms. Now, if that trait is carried by both parents, there is a 25% chance that their children will show symptoms of the disease. Ishla fights anemia and sickness constantly. There is no cure for it either. Blood transfusion is the only means of controlling it, and it's temporary. Most sickle cell victims die by their mid-teens or early 20s.
The hardest thing is that knowing there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I have to watch her hurt and realize that I can't stop the hurt. I have to explain to her, or try to explain to her at that time, again, each time, Ishla, you know there's nothing that we can do about this. You know that you have to have the needles in order to feel better. You know they're going to have to stick you, and you're going to have to be still no matter how bad you feel right now. This is the way it has to be.
Sickle cell anemia is a disease of the red blood cells. The cells take on an abnormal shape when any infection or trauma or stress is introduced. Those sickled cells, the odd-shaped ones, can plug up blood vessels and cut off oxygen to any organ in the body. That can cause a stroke. The body automatically tries to rid itself of the abnormal cells. Healthy scavenger cells destroy them. And it's that decreased number of red blood cells, then, that causes anemia. And thus the need for blood transfusions, to add healthy blood cells to Ishla's body, replacing the abnormal ones manufactured by her system. But there's always risk with blood transfusion. Ishla's already had one bout with hepatitis. But the transfusions cannot be stopped. 5 years ago, she had a stroke that left her partially paralyzed.
Without a transfusion, she's almost certain to have another stroke, and it's almost certain to be fatal.
For now, blood transfusion is all there is, along with talk of new treatment.
Being a bone marrow transplantee, that probably will be the best treatment at present time before we can go to the level of genetic manipulation that we can really take out the genes or take out the cells of the patient, splice out the genes which are abnormal and reconstitute them, and that technology is being developed at present time.
Until bone marrow transplant is perfected and genetic research better understood, children like Ishla will suffer the physical pain, and her mother will suffer the financial and emotional burdens that go along with it.
I thought about it a long time, but I knew I had to do it.
Margaret Ann Allen finally arrived at that conclusion after being tormented for years with eye problems, made worse when complications arose following cataract surgery. Today, 6 months later, she's had a cornea transplant. She can see, not perfectly, but her doctor tells her it's only the beginning.
They say that my retina is improving all the time, and when that does, I'll have 20/20 vision.
How does that make you feel?
Very good.
Greetings.
Nice
Thank you for coming in.
today.
Good to see you. Can we take a look at your eyes?
Lloyd Abbott will tell you that he can't lavish enough praise on his current eye surgeon. A lens implant following cataract surgery went bad years ago. His eye was nearly destroyed. He couldn't see anything. But that was last Friday. Still a little red-eyed and teary 1 week later, but an easy trade-off for vision. Tell me what kind of a difference it's made in your life.
Oh, just the difference being see somebody and not being able to. Just that simple. Just being blind. I can't think. I'd rather be dead than blind. I feel like I was 25 years younger.
Do you really?
I really do.
The cornea is the window to the eye. It's the thin, clear covering over the front of the eye that allows an image to be seen and focused. Cornea transplants, like the one you're looking at, are performed on young people when there's distortion in the shape of the front of the eye. In older people, the eye simply wears out, or sometimes there are complications after cataract surgery. The cornea becomes cloudy, and without cornea transplant, no light can get in, and there's blindness.
You have something I can put in there, Carol? Let me have some garamycin, too.
Christopher Campsey was born with cloudy corneas. Doctors have no explanation as to why, but they did know how to fix it. Until last week, Christopher was 3 months old and nearly blind. He had a cornea transplant, a gift of sight. As soon as the sutures are removed and the eye heals, Christopher Campsey will experience a whole new realm of stimulation he's never seen before.
I'm just glad that they could, do something with his eyes. Doctors told us 10 years ago they might not have been able to do this type, so we're just real glad that they could. He knows his parents, he does, he knows when we're holding him and stuff, but, he'll be able to, see the people and see who's holding him, and that's what's going to make it real good.
We was really down, and now that they had a donor and everything, I think it's really something for people to donate organs so that it would give somebody else a chance to see.
Thousands of people will jam Oklahoma lakes between now and the fall, seeking reprieve from the scorching sun and anxious for water sports. Unfortunately, a small percentage of them will plunge into waters that they don't know very well, and they will come up a different person. Most spinal cord injuries happen to men between the ages of 16 and 30. That's what happened to Ron Montgomery 5 years ago in July.
I was at a birthday party with for my brother at Lake Thunderbird, and after a while, everybody wanted to go swimming, so we all started getting down our bathing suits, and my sister-in-law was in the water, and it looked as if it was about chest high on her, and so I dove past her. And apparently I didn't go out far enough because that's when I hit bottom and broke my neck.
The simple things that most of us take for granted can be nearly impossible for someone in a wheelchair. Things like reaching for an item on a store shelf. Most of these shelves are standard height for grocery stores. Ron has had 5 years to adjust himself to living in a wheelchair because of one mistake at Lake Thunderbird. An intense rehabilitation program has enabled him to be independent and to make the best of what he does have.
The things that mean the most to us or that we take for granted, they're so difficult for these people. Just opening a door, if you can imagine, having 2 foot of you extended above your arms and you try to open the door, they have to go sideways to do that. Getting up on curbs, it's something they can't do. Reaching something off the top shelf in the supermarket, things we take so terribly for granted, is a real hassle. I think that in cord patients, we tend to forget how fast we jump up and get dressed in the morning and take so much for granted. Everything has to be planned in their life.
Most spinal cord injuries like Ron's that take place in swimming pools and lakes affect the upper portion of the spinal cord, causing near total paralysis, usually in both the arms and in the legs. Ron is putting his life back together, though. At one time a commercial artist, he still spends some of his time at that, but is now seeking new endeavors. With the help of an automated lift and hand controls, he drives himself to school daily, where he's now studying to become an engineer. It's an independence that has not come easy. And he'll be the first to tell you that he wished he'd jumped into that lake 5 years ago instead of diving head first. Unlike some of the more unfortunate children at Children's Hospital, 3-year-old Crystal Gunter will be going home soon. She was admitted 2 weeks ago after a nagging cough turned into pneumonia, empyema pneumonia, where the lungs become full of fluid. A drainage tube inserted into the pulmonary cavity has kept that fluid from collecting. For the most part, though, her mother, Penny, knows what's ahead. There are hundreds of other children here at Children's Hospital whose futures are not so certain, who suffer from congenital diseases, who suffer from cancers for which there is no cure, birth defects, and mysterious conditions like autism. Money can help make those futures more defined. 100% of what this weekend's telethon generates will be spent in Oklahoma on children at Oklahoma Children's Memorial Hospital.
All of the money will go either for research at Children's or for the development and expansion of actual programs at Children's Hospital. Their money will be spent, on the one hand, to advance our knowledge into specific diseases. For example, diseases like cystic fibrosis, diseases again like sudden infant death syndrome, diseases that relate to chronic ailments of the kidney, and a variety of other diseases.
Right now, there's no identified budget earmarked for research at Children's Hospital. Instead, those monies come from competing with others nationwide for dollars from the National Institute of Health or private foundations. It's money that has dwindled because of the economy. Join us here at News 4 for a 21-hour telethon this weekend to help these kids. Your money will help buy some answers.
We've got 2 sessions growing, and we've got 1 session that hasn't started growing yet. It takes about 3 months for these hairs.
Larry Smoot has been undergoing hair transplant for 7 months. This is his 3rd session with Dr. Otar Norwood. And he'll probably undergo 1 more session before his head can be full of hair, like it used to be.
The genetic key is located in the hair follicle, not the blood supply or anything. So you can take this hair follicle and put it up here where it's bald, and it grows. It'll grow anywhere on that person.
And doctors have been doing hair transplants for 25 years successfully. This is Larry Smoot 7 months ago. This is him today. Once all of his transplanted hair follicles begin to grow, he'll have twice as much hair as you see right now.
It evidently it bothered me because the way I comb my hair. This was wrapped around, you know, and this is pulled up from the back. And, you know, yeah, when you used to have hair, it's hard to let go that you don't have hair.
We simply take hair from the sides in little grafts, punch grafts, 4.5 millimeter grafts, and place them, take them out of the back of the hair that's not going to fall out and put it up into the area that it has fallen out or we can anticipate will fall out.
Once those grafts, referred to as plugs, are removed from the scalp, they're cleaned and then put back into the scalp in the bald areas. Each plug is 1/4 of an inch in diameter and contains anywhere from 10 to 30 hairs. Dr. Norwood will transplant about 75 grafts per session. It takes about 4 sessions to obtain a full head of hair, and it takes about 3 months for the transplanted hair to begin growing.
One of the major drawbacks to hair transplants has been that the unnatural hairline. In dark-haired individual with white skin, you get a very sharp, abrupt hairline. Not always, but sometimes, and sometimes it's tufted. We can overcome that with the use of these micrografts by individually planting individual hairs at the hairline, and it makes it kind of feather it in or refine the hairline.
Scalp reduction has also advanced hair transplant. By removing some of the scalp, there's a smaller area in need of transplant. It's not done on a routine basis, but it is the suggested treatment for some baldness. And there's new hope on the horizon. Minoxidil, a pill for high blood pressure, causes the body to produce hair.
Minoxidil is a very potent drug, and if you take it orally, it lowers your blood pressure so much that it's kind of dangerous if you don't have high blood pressure. So if you can just apply it to the area. Apparently there's no systemic side effects, but we're trying to get the skin effect, the hair growing effects without the systemic effects.
As for Larry Smoot, he goes home in a turban after the transplant session. He can take it off in 24 hours. Local anesthetic was all that was required. Dr. Norwood tells us that it's not likely that Larry will have any problems as long as he takes it easy for about 5 days. He'll never have thick, luxurious hair, but he won't be bald either.
Ready for the ski slopes.
Mr. Prophet, I've got to take your blood pressure, okay?
Oh, that's fine.
Barbara McGivney graduated from Mercy's School of Nursing in 1951. Since then, she's worked as a bedside nurse, taking care of sick people, charged with getting them well and then sending them home. That traditional role is changing.
Well, the basic love and caring of the patient hasn't changed, but there's been so many changes in, the medications and treatments and how you do it. Teaching is a big part of nursing. Getting the family involved in the care for patients that are going to go home from the hospital is a big item in nursing now.
Home health care is the wave of the future. It's where a large chunk of the nursing jobs will be. It will cut back health care costs at a time when the government is going to limit Medicare payments. Everyone in the industry is held accountable for costs incurred.
Today, the nurse has to think about the costs as she takes care of the patient, any supplies that she might need to take care of that patient. I think that she's probably going to work a little bit smarter as far as relating the cost of supplies that she needs.
To be a nurse years past, if you had the skills to take care of a patient, that was enough. But their knowledge and their practice is going to be on a broader scope, not only just patient care, but they're very, very much aware of the hospital and patient environment and the economics that goes along nationwide with the hospital industry.
And that raises the question, how will schools of nursing change? Will they take a proactive course and help set the pace within the healthcare industry, or will they simply react and be dictated to by that industry?
I support the concept that nursing is proactive instead of reactive, and that is that the curriculums are designed such that we can determine what the future in healthcare will be, rather than wait till the crisis has occurred and then attempt to catch up.
Nursing school curriculums are expanding from chemistry labs and bedside training to include home health care and community nursing. Classes will place more emphasis on the well adult as the nurse's role changes from a focus on sick care to promoting wellness. Both the American Nursing Association and the National League for Nursing are pushing for higher education levels, supporting 4-year degrees over the LPN, whose training program is about half that. Layoffs are something the nursing profession has just recently encountered.
Nursing just a very few years ago, you could walk in and if you were warm and walking around, you had a job any shift you asked for, you know. And we were at a point in Oklahoma where if you worked 4 8-hour shifts on a weekend, they paid you for 5. That luxury isn't going to be there, but I don't think that's all bad. I believe, as I said a few minutes ago, that the service professions are going to be there forever.
Jobs will not be as plentiful, and the healthcare industry will be more selective. But the adage, there's always a place for a good nurse, seems to be the consensus. Terry Cook for Medical Matters. Ron Tedford broke a wrist 6 weeks ago. Because of his age, physicians told him that it'd take anywhere from 3 months to a year for it to heal. Familiar with hyperbaric therapy, he opted to try it to see if the healing process could be speeded up. Now, after 10 treatments, he's been told his wrist will be healed within a month.
Because we can always see the healing in the pictures, in the x-rays. And at my age, that's pretty good. And all at once, well, you're rejuvenated with the excess oxygen in your body, just like you'd went out and exercised.
Well, think about it. The brain uses oxygen at a tremendous rate. And if your circulation is impaired to the brain, 2 things happen. For one thing, it can't function properly. For another thing, it can't heal properly. So if you want to start a healing process in the brain, what do you need? Well, you need the raw materials. You need the oxygen, you need the nutrients, you need the substances to repair brain tissue. And oxygen is a major substance.
How does hyperbaric therapy work? while pure oxygen is administered to patients in these tanks under very high pressure. That highly pressurized oxygen, 10 to 15 times that found in a sea level environment, literally forces itself into the body, supplying an abundance of the life-giving element to needy body tissues. The therapy is being used now to treat a gamut of diseases, from angina to gas gangrene to deep bone infections, arthritis, athletic injuries, and most recently to multiple sclerosis.
Richard Neubauer from Florida has been using it for multiple sclerosis. He published an article in the New England Journal of Medicine which showed 85% of his MS patients showed distinct improvement. Some of them who hadn't had bladder control for a long time suddenly got their bladder back, which is really wonderful improvement. A lot more muscular function.
Mr. Armstrong, you use the oxygen therapy for emphysema. Tell me what kind of a reaction you had after that.
Well, in other words, my breathing was much easier after that, after I took the 10 treatments. And well, it just makes a difference. People that haven't had it can't realize what it'll do for you.
But hyperbaric therapy has received mixed reactions from the traditional medical community.
Well, I think it's like any other new thing. If it wasn't discovered at Harvard or Yale, it takes a while to get discovered. And so there's a political element to medicine. So a lot of doctors are still questioning it. Some of it are violently against it. Some of it are mildly for it, but are not willing to get involved themselves. To most doctors, when you sit down and talk to them like this, they say, yeah, it makes sense, but it hasn't been proven. Well, it has been proven.
They may not be able to get an eyelid that will open and close and squint like a eyelid normally would.
Ed Crosby has lived with von Recklinghausen's disease for 60 years. Most people are more familiar with the term Elephantiasis, the same deforming disease that afflicted the elephant man. It's genetic. Victims suffer from hundreds of painless tumors that most of the time are no problem, except aesthetically. The disease can be complicated by folds in the facial tissue, causing the skin to hang much like that of an elephant. This is what Ed Crosby lived with for 60 years, until last week when, on the advice of his nephew, he flew from his hometown in South Carolina to Oklahoma City for plastic surgery.
Sometimes you don't know who to go to. And at first I just give it up the way I could maybe just have to go through life just like it was until my nephew recommended Dr. Forrester to me.
I knew it was going to be real difficult to do, but you know, they have to be done because doing nothing is not going to improve anything. Mm-hmm. And we may not ever get him perfect, and I'm sure we can, but that's what we want to try to do, is to get him look as normal as possible so that he can walk down the street without everybody turning their head.
Dr. Forrester removed the thick folds of tissue that surrounded the eye. The skin was then tailored and the eyelid reattached to where it's supposed to be. There's still a lot of work to be done on Ed Crosby, but he'll be heading back to South Carolina probably in the next week, happy with the work that has been done, and he told us he wishes he'd done it a lot sooner.
I got a lot of friends in Waldoboro, where I'm from, and they're all looking forward. I talked to some of them today on the telephone, and they're all looking for me to coming back to Waldoboro and see how I look, and, you know, because I know I look better than I did now. Any little thing is a help, but I'm going to be very, very pleased, and I'm sure they are too.
Once the swelling goes down and the face is healed, Dr. Forrester will attempt to reconstruct Ed's eye, which is good, but still trapped behind the eyelid.
I touch my nose, I touch my toes, I touch my shoulders now.
These kids are visually impaired, but they'll learn to get along in a world without sight.
I touch my hair, I touch my chair.
This early attention and training will start them in that direction. They're 5- and 6-year-olds. Hand and motor skills are the focus of this training. After that, they work on language, reading, and school readiness.
The finger points to you.
Everybody get ready, because I'm not going to tell you where I roll it, so you'll have to listen.
We try to include self-help and socialization skills, fine motor and manipulative skills, which is really important for a blind child because he learns, much of his learning is through touch. These children are very normal children, they just cannot see.
Good. Where is it? Can you find it? Very good. To the left of the middle.
Preschoolers are exposed to reading, and these are no exception.
I know that one too.
Lessons in Braille are part of the curriculum. It's a complex lesson for a 5- or 6-year-old, but one that also evokes enthusiasm.
Oh, you got the whole alphabet. You know this? You got your whole alphabet on your Braille opera page.
I just turn it on high.
A lot of training is squeezed into the 3-hour day, even hygiene.
I want to see who's ready next. Who's next?
When I get my tray.
Step down. Oh, look at you. That's good work.
After that, a little test in agility.
Thank you, Gary. That's nice.
And then lunchtime, where the learning continues. Simple things like spreading peanut butter are a little more difficult when you can't find the cracker. Desserts are studied through touch before being devoured.
All over your cracker.
Most of these kids have taken part in programs at the Child Study Center since they were babies. Their parents have watched their progress. Krista Mitchell has watched her son Chris participate in special development programs here since he was 3 months old.
So what goes through your mind as you sit back in that observation room there and watch him?
Just, I'm proud of how good he's doing and how much they're teaching him.
That's good.
Just watching him, seeing him be able to fit into the world.
Cab rides to and from school are part of the program. Transport was the big issue when the grant request was written up, and because that money came through, these youngsters are learning to run and play and to fit in. All of these boys will take with them the lessons learned over the summer and be mainstreamed into Oklahoma public school systems this fall.
He's operating on one of my friends.
18-year-old Debbie Gates is a prime candidate for hip replacement. She's badly crippled with rheumatoid arthritis, normally part of the aging process, but in some cases it attacks young people, stiffening their joints, rendering them old before their time, freezing knees, hips, elbows, confining youth to wheelchairs.
I went through a long time when I was real depressed. You know, I stayed in my room, didn't talk to anybody, watched TV a lot, or slept. I don't know, I guess most kids with any kind of illness, I mean, that's going to last a long time, they either really withdraw or they become really outgoing. And I guess I've been at both ends of the spectrum.
Hip replacement offers Debbie a shot at a more normal life for an 18-year-old, one that will allow her to walk with friends and get around without assistance. Her right hip joint was replaced 3 months ago. It will take that long again before she can even put weight on her left side. Dr. Joseph Kopta performed the first hip replacement and has high hopes for Debbie once this operation is complete.
Her trochanteric bursitis. That's the structure that's involved.
Rheumatoid arthritis produces destructive enzymes in the joints, which eat away at the cartilage. Once that cartilage is gone, bones rub against bones, destroying themselves. They become pitted and rough.
Awfully soft. The bone is just incredibly soft.
And it's that deteriorated bone that must be removed with saw and hammer, replaced by a $2,000 prosthesis or artificial joint made of plastic and cobalt.
We're in effect enlarging her acetabulum and at the same time removing what remnants of cartilage she has left. This prosthesis has a coating, a metal coating, which gives it a rough surface, and There's enough evidence to suggest that the bone will grow in to that rough surface and thereby anchor the prosthesis directly to the bone. Okay, that's good. She's never going to have a normal life by the standards that we consider normal. Our goals are always limited. She's been in a wheelchair for 7 months. Hasn't walked at all. So getting her out of the wheelchair and walking is a major advance for her. There's her new hip. She flexes, stands, rotates.
I plan on, everybody doesn't know yet, but I plan on going to the Christmas dance at school because I haven't been able to go all through high school because I've had one problem or the other. So that's my biggest goal right now. He's operating on one of my friends.
18-year-old Debbie Gates is a prime candidate for hip replacement. She's badly crippled with rheumatoid arthritis, normally part of the aging process, but in some cases it attacks young people, stiffening their joints, rendering them old before their time, freezing knees, hips, elbows, confining youth to wheelchairs.
I went through a long time when I was real depressed. I stayed in my room, didn't talk to anybody, watched TV a lot, or slept. I don't know, I guess most kids with any kind of illness, that's going to last a long time, they either really withdraw or they become really outgoing. And I guess I've been at both ends of the spectrum.
Hip replacement offers Debbie a shot at a more normal life for an 18-year-old, one that will allow her to walk with friends and get around without assistance. Her right hip joint was replaced 3 months ago. It will take that long again before she can even put weight on her left side. Dr. Joseph Kopta performed the first hip replacement